Hello and welcome to an exciting new video about Stoicism, where we're going over the Moral Letters by Lucius Annaeus Seneca. Last time I read to you part of letter 56, and I actually thought there was a bit more good stuff in there, so I will now read you the last part. Remember last time we talked about noise and such. Seneca had noise in the bathhouse below where he lived, so he was talking about dealing with that. For how does it help to have silence in the neighborhood when one's emotions are in tumult? All things were settled in night's restful calm. It's a lie. There is no restful calm but that which is settled by reason. Night doesn't take away our cares, rather it exposes them to view, exchanging one anxiety for another. For even when we are asleep, our dreams may be tumultuous as waking life. Only as the mind develops into excellence do we achieve any real tranquility. Look at a person who yearns for sleep in the quiet of a household laid to rest. Not one sound assails his ears, all his mob of slaves is hushed. They creep on tiptoe past his room. Yet all the same, he rolls to one side and the other, dozing fitfully among his sorrows, and complains of sound he did not really hear. What do you suppose is the reason? His mind is noisy. He must put that to rest, must quell its insurrection. You need not think the mind is at rest just because the body is lying still. Sometimes quiet is itself unquiet. So when we are oppressed with idleness, let us rouse ourselves to action, or busy ourselves with cultural pursuits, for idleness has no patience with itself. Great generals, when they see the troops grow restive, assign them some labor and fill their time with marches. If they are kept busy, they find no leisure for insubordination. Nothing is more certain than that the faults of inactivity are dispelled by activity. Many a time our weariness with affairs of state and second thoughts about an unrewarding and thankless job have induced us to go into retreat, or so we thought, and yet, within that den where tiredness and fear have driven us, ambition all the while is festering anew. It has not been cut away, it has not ceased to trouble us, it was only fatigued, or indeed only vexed that things did not go its way. Of self-indulgence I say the same. It seems at times to be in remission, then when we are pledged to modest living, it harries us again, and in the midst of our economy goes after pleasure we had not in fact renounced, but only abandoned. And it pursues them all, the more energetic, that was not the end of the sentence, and it pursues them all the more energetically, the more they are kept under cover. For all our failings are milder in the open. Even the infirmities make the turn toward healing once they emerge from hiding and exhibit their full force. Thus, when greed, ambition, and other maladies of the human mind subside into apparent health, that is when you can tell they are at their deadliest. We seem to be at leisure, but we aren't, for if we truly are, if we have really sounded the retreat, if we have turned our back on things that merely glitter, then, as I was saying, nothing will distract us. No chatter of men, no song of birds will interrupt our thoughts, excellent thoughts, and now sure and solid too. It is a lightweight mind, and one not yet devoted to introspection, that stirs at a voice or at chance occurrences. It has within some anxiety, some element of panic that makes it uneasy. Our poet Virgil says, "And I, who long endured the hurtling darts unmoved, the Achaeans massed in threatening ranks, and now the wind, now start at every sound, trembling alike for my companion and my load." The earlier case is that of the wise person who is not alarmed by the hurtling arrows, the ranks of armed men in close formation, the clamor of a city under siege. The latter is the one without experience, who fears for his own affairs and trembles every time he hears a thump. Every voice seems to him a menacing roar. The slightest movement throws him into a panic. His baggage makes him fearful. Choose any one of those prosperous persons, those who have much to carry and much in their train, and you will see him trembling alike for his companion and his load. Therefore you may be sure that your mind is settled only when no outcry reaches you, when no voice distracts you from yourself, whether with blandishments or with threats or just with meaningless noise. What is it you're saying then? Isn't it easier sometimes to be away from the racket? Yes, I grant that. And that's why I'm going to leave this place. I wanted to test myself, give myself a workout, but why should I be tormented any longer when Ulysses found his companion such an easy solution? That was effective, even against the sirens. Farewell. Okay, so there are a few things that I found interesting there. One thing is that Seneca himself says, and this is a nice addition, I think, to the previous video, of yes, you can suffer from all these things and the sounds and the noises and all that. You can try to bear that, and we have discussed last time how you can do that. But now he also continues by saying, until you can't, and then you can walk away. And I think that's interesting. Now, it should be stated straight away, you cannot walk away from every single situation in life. Sometimes there are specific things you can't walk away from, but I suppose then the adage of some things are within your control, other things are not within your control comes into play. In any case, what is very important here, I think, is to remember that in many situations you do have an opportunity to get out, to walk away, right? And that can be simple, everyday things that you are exposed to, but that you can actually walk away from. Using an innocent example, should you happen to have that one particular colleague who is always a bit belligerent, who always wants to argue everything, you can walk away. You do not have to engage. I always remember this. Eric and I still joke about this. When Eric and I were at the DC Pen Show, there was a doorman at the hotel who we were outside, we walked inside, and there were some hotel guests who were having, I don't want to call it an argument, but a strongly worded discussion with the doorman. And he had the most amazing response. And that was a very, very stoic response. And again, Eric and I still use this expression to each other once in a while. This doorman looked at this couple, middle-aged couple. And I think this doorman, to set the stage, I think he was probably in his 50s. I would say mid-50s. He looks at this couple who keep going, and he said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Have a nice day." And he turns around, he walks into the hotel. And Eric and I were kind of laughing a bit to ourselves. But you should have seen the faces of this couple. There was this shock, because that wasn't supposed to happen. They wanted to have a belligerent conversation with a person, and he chose to walk out. End of story. And then, defeated, they walked off, and they were rather sullen and quiet. And I think that is something we must remember. This is not always easy. It's not always easy. But I think it is important to remember that often that is an option we have. You know what? You're absolutely right. Have a nice day. Brilliant. Okay, so that's one part of this. Now, the second part is a bit more esoteric, but I found it very interesting. So Seneca here is saying something along the lines of, the wise man, the wise person, the sophos, the paragon of virtue that Stoics aim or aspire to emulate, right? The true wise person, the sage, is not perturbed. The sage can focus on his, her, their thoughts and not be distracted by all kinds of things that go on. The sage is also unperturbed in the face of terrifying things, army ranks, etc. Because the sage realizes that some things are within the sage's control and other things are not within the sage's control. And if something is in your control, there's nothing to worry about. If something is not within your control, there's nothing to worry about, because you cannot do a single thing about that specific issue. It's remarkable when you think about it, when you truly apply that, how much easier a lot of things in life get. I distinctly remember a professor that I had who at some point said, worrying is useless. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you have these thoughts that Seneca alludes to right in the night, there is no rest at night, there is no calm peacefulness, because that's when our thoughts sort of go haywire and we suffer from them. And then he says this, right? He says this, that's what happens in the night. And this professor said, well, when that happens, worrying is not going to make any difference. Then you either accept that's how things are right now, or you get up and do something about it. But don't lie there worrying, because you just have a terrible night of sleep. You wake up feeling bad. And I always thought that was very good advice, right? Either you accept, at this moment there's nothing I can do, or you get up and do something. Change something if that is possible. But it has to be one or the other, because the relentless mind traps of, and then this and then that, and then she said this and I did this and then he said that, that does not work. It only makes matters worse. It's hard to do, but I think those things are very important. So I thought the second part of this letter was another fascinating one, something to think about, how you perceive these kinds of things. What can you do to not be perturbed? How do you deal with that? Let me know what you think of this passage, how you deal with these specific issues. It's always interesting to read. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you again soon for more talk about Stoicism. Bye!